And there are a lot of questions. What he's exactly charged with, who's going to testify, what this case is going to look like. But before we get to those questions, we want to remind everybody how we got here. Sean Combs, known as Diddy, known as Puff Daddy, is about to stand trial in New York in May. Combs had his famous white parties.
So I moved to a new neighborhood and they were like, well, what's this guy doing moving here in East Hampton? I said, everybody, come on over to the house so y'all get to know me. You ain't got nothing to be afraid of.
Some of the alleged activity may have occurred in the later hours of those parties.
Kids have like an hour left. Because this thing turns into something that when y'all get older, y'all don't want to come to.
Where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose. But it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. He signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when you know he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me, so and we gonna go full crazy.
We're going crazy.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way.
What happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95, that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
We have the latest from federal court in the Sean Combs criminal case. Status of jury selection, what Diddy's going to be wearing, violation of a gag order, rejecting a plea offer.
Federal trafficking, racketeering, and charges beginning Monday morning.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
Y'all know what this is about. Put your hands up.
Elaborate, sometimes days-long parties by coercing victims through drugs, threats, and manipulation. They claim to have video evidence, and some of the accusations echo details from over 70 civil lawsuits filed against Combs over the last 30 years.
Mr. Combs feels he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are celebrity tapes involved in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
I'm certain no.
Okay.
And again, when you say this case, we're talking the criminal case.
The criminal case.
In the
correct.
criminal,
I know that.
In the criminal case. In the criminal case, no.
What made you come here to support Puff?
I'm supporting Puff because he's innocent, and I'm wholeheartedly believing his innocence, and I know he's innocent. So
you think you know he's innocent?
1,000%.
She did, and when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
Major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted.
He knows
The deck is stacked against him. They've got a ton of evidence. Take the plea deal, dude. Just take it.
Well, my guess is that because we don't know the deal of the plea deal. At least I don't think we do.
True.
Okay.
Would you be open to a plea bargain?
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent. And what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government.
Diddy's lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, "My concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors."
The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
This is going to be such a massive trial, like maybe the biggest Hollywood trial. God knows which way it's going to go. Is it going to go on for weeks?
For sure, weeks. Isn't that, to my mind, that's one of the bigger hurdles in selecting a jury this coming week, is that there is, at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, they have that opinion, strongly held opinion, that there's celebrity tapes, that they've kind of conflated Epstein, and you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these things into Diddy. There's this idea that somehow this is Epstein redux or something.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
A private party in a mansion, a music mogul at the peak of his power, and a video no one expected to resurface until now. For years, whispers followed Sean Diddy Combs. Whispers about what really happened behind closed doors at his infamous white parties. Celebrities came and went. Phones were taken. Guests signed NDAs. And then, silence. But silence doesn't last forever. Now, as Diddy prepares to face federal charges in one of the most high-stakes celebrity trials in recent memory, a lost piece of evidence has exploded into the case, a 14-minute video clip handed over by none other than Justin Bieber's legal team. A clip that could change everything. This isn't just about one night, it's about a pattern that stretches across decades. Allegations of manipulation, secrecy, and control. And with new names, new footage, and a new strategy unfolding in court, the question isn't just what happened, it's who knew and what comes next. Long before the courtroom, there were the parties. Diddy wasn't just throwing events, he was building a myth. From East Hampton to Beverly Hills, the white parties became legendary. A-list celebrities, athletes, executives, and rising stars all gathered under one roof, dressed in white, drinks flowing, cameras banned. It wasn't just exclusivity, it was secrecy. Locals remember him moving into East Hampton like a storm. "What's this guy doing here?" they'd whisper. His answer? "Come on over, see for yourself." And they did. But as the night wore on, the guest list seemed to change. Kids were told they had an hour left before things got grown. One guest recalled, "This thing turns into something that, when y'all get older, y'all gonna wanna come to." Whatever that meant, it stuck with people. It was these very parties that became the backdrop for some of the most disturbing allegations. Because behind the curated image, prosecutors say, were hidden rooms, controlled access, and a system designed not just for indulgence, but for domination. And those rumors, they didn't fade. They multiplied, especially as new voices started coming forward, each one painting a picture more haunting than the last. But that was just the surface. The real story, prosecutors say, is in the pattern. This isn't the first time Diddy's name has come up in courtrooms. Over the past 3 decades, more than 70 civil lawsuits have been filed against him, each one a brick in a wall that prosecutors now say shows a deeply disturbing pattern. Some cases settled quietly, Others vanished under piles of paperwork, buried in non-disclosure agreements and sealed depositions. But the claims? They all echo each other. Drugs, coercion, intimidation, control. Alleged victims describe being invited to exclusive events, only to find themselves isolated, manipulated, and surrounded by staff who took orders, not questions. The language may vary, but the structure stays the same. Lavish setting, tight security, complete control. And it's not just women. Some of the most recent allegations involve men, testimonies of psychological pressure, blurred lines, and fear of speaking out. One former staff member said, "Everything had a code. Phrases you had to say, behaviors you had to follow. And if you didn't, you were gone." Until now, none of this was enough to bring criminal charges. But prosecutors believe this time is different, because now they have something new, something physical, a video. So what is Diddy actually facing? In the federal indictment, the charges are serious: trafficking, racketeering, coercion, and conspiracy. Prosecutors allege that he didn't just host parties, he built a system, a network designed to lure, isolate, and control. A place where drugs weren't just offered, they were weaponized, and where saying no didn't feel like an option. But Diddy isn't backing down. He's rejected any plea deal. His legal team is clear. He will not admit to something he didn't do. The official statement: that every encounter involved consenting adults, that no one was forced, that the government is spinning luxury into crime. At trial, Diddy won't be in handcuffs or an orange jumpsuit. He'll appear in a tailored suit, seated beside high-powered lawyers, while the prosecution tries to convince a jury that behind the music, the fame, and the wealth, there was something darker. But the biggest question still hangs in the air. Can they prove it? Because without proof, even the ugliest accusations won't stick. And that's why the next piece of this story has everyone's attention. In a case this high profile, the list of potential witnesses reads like a backstage pass to the music industry. Former bodyguards, assistants, ex-partners, and event staff, people who were there when the lights were low and the cameras were off. Prosecutors say they have key witnesses ready to speak under oath. Some are expected to confirm what those parties were really like. Others may describe being pressured, silenced, or even threatened. One name that raised eyebrows early on? Usher. Back in the day, Diddy claimed to have had legal guardianship of the young artist. "He's with me for the next 48 hours, Diddy once said during Usher's first album cycle. A throwaway line? Maybe, but in hindsight, it sounds more ominous. So far, Usher isn't scheduled to testify, but other insiders are, people with stories that, if true, could change everything. And then there's the silence. At one of the most critical pretrial hearings, reporters noticed something strange. No sign of Diddy's family. His sons, his mother, his sister, none of them in the gallery. That's a sharp contrast to earlier appearances when they showed up in solidarity. Is that just a scheduling fluke? Or a signal? Either way, when the witness list is read in court, the names and the absences will speak volumes. But it was one name, not on the list, that delivered the biggest shock: Justin Bieber. Nobody saw this coming. Just days before the trial, prosecutors revealed a 14-minute video clip, quietly submitted by Justin Bieber's legal team. It wasn't leaked. It wasn't sold. It showed up in a sealed court filing backed by a sworn declaration. And the story behind it is almost as strange as the tape itself. According to Bieber's lawyers, the footage was buried in long-term storage on an old handheld camera's memory card. It was found by accident, part of a document review for an unrelated civil case. Bieber, they say, didn't even know the clip had any value until he reviewed it recently. What it shows is chilling. The video captures a guest corridor inside a Diddy-owned mansion, with uniformed staff escorting small groups of people past a restricted entrance. There's no music, no crowd, just silence, radios, and precision. At multiple moments, a staffer uses the phrase "heartbeat reset," a term that prosecutors now say is critical. Why? Because it matches phrases found in old shift logs previously submitted by a former security chief. It links the video to earlier testimony. Suddenly, this isn't just a random clip. It's a puzzle piece, one that prosecutors believe completes a pattern. Bieber is not considered a suspect or target. He's not accused of anything. He simply handed over the file when asked. But that 14-minute clip might carry more weight than any testimony because for the first time, the allegations have visuals. It sounds harmless, almost like a code from a sci-fi movie. But in the world of this trial, heartbeat reset could be the phrase that cracks the entire case. The words are heard 5 separate times on the Bieber. Footage, each tied to moments when staff guide guests through a restricted corridor. At first, it seemed like nothing. But then investigators matched it to internal documents, specifically staff shift rosters and security spreadsheets. Those documents, previously submitted by Diddy's former security chief, listed scheduled door access cycles, linen deliveries, and oddly timed lighting changes. And there it was, heartbeat reset. Written out multiple times, attached to specific tasks. The prosecution says it was a cue, a coded signal used by staff to begin transitions into what they call private phases of these events. Door locks, camera shutoffs, radio silence. Defense attorneys say it's nothing more than hotel-style service language, a way of refreshing rooms, turning over linens. Just a term, they argue. Every venue has them. But prosecutors aren't buying that. They argue that this phrase, paired with camera panning, escorted movements, and synchronized logs, shows intentional coordination, not casual service. And there's one more reason they're pushing it so hard. It may be the only verbal clue caught on tape. The question now is, who said it? This is where things shift from speculation to science. It's not just what's in the video, it's how it lines up. Prosecutors didn't stop at the footage. They cross-referenced it with a mountain of digital data: router logs, staff badge scans, device pings, and linen delivery records. And what they found is what they're calling the hidden timeline. Here's how it breaks down. The video's timecodes match the exact windows when guest devices were collected and security cameras went offline. Wi-Fi router logs confirm that Justin Bieber's phone connected at the same moment his handheld camera was recording. Staff badge entries show synchronized movement, escorts walking in and out of the corridor at the precise time seen in the footage. And emails? One aide sends a message, need full linen refreshed by dawn. Just hours after the video was recorded. All of it, prosecutors say, builds one message. This wasn't chaos, it was choreography. The defense hit back, of course. They claim it's a stretch. Every event has logistics. You're making a crime out of spreadsheets. But the jury won't be hearing spreadsheets. They'll be seeing a heat map, a visual overlay where 4 independent data sets align nearly perfectly. That's no accident, prosecutors argue. That's intent. And if that alignment is real, it opens the door to something deeper. How far was this coordination designed to go? Because the next question is even harder to ignore. At events like these, no cameras means no witnesses. That's the rule. Guests were told to hand over their phones at the door. No exceptions, but somehow Justin Bieber's handheld video camera made it through. According to his legal team, he was allowed to keep it because it was considered media equipment. The defense says it's nothing suspicious. Bieber was a megastar, and stars get special treatment. But prosecutors see something else entirely: selective enforcement of security protocols. Why were everyone else's devices confiscated, but Bieber's wasn't? And why did no one notice that his camera was rolling for over 14 minutes straight? That tiny detail, who keeps what, has become a central issue in court. Prosecutors argue it shows that rules were bent depending on who you were, which could explain why so much happened without being recorded until now. Bieber's declaration says he had no idea the footage would become evidence. He found it during a sweep of old files requested for an unrelated lawsuit. Pure coincidence? Or a crucial crack in a system built on silence? And here's the twist. If Bieber had followed the rules and handed in that camera, this entire piece of evidence wouldn't exist. But the footage is real. It's authenticated, and now it's part of the government's case. Which leads to a new question. What else was happening that night? And why were the cameras really off? Sometimes it's not what's in the footage. It's what was going on around it. Right after the Bieber clip surfaced, prosecutors dropped 2 email threads into evidence. One from a staffer requesting an urgent linen delivery. ASAP, need full refresh by dawn. The second, an internal directive. Disable cameras in zones B and D, scheduled maintenance. The timing, hours before the video was recorded. To prosecutors, this isn't maintenance, it's a cover. They say the linen orders, paired with the disabled cameras and guest movement logs, point to something being prepared behind the scenes, something that needed the cameras off and the corridors cleared. The defense pushed back hard. Holiday. Weekends need more supplies. Camera outages happen all the time. This isn't criminal, it's event planning. And yes, on paper, that's plausible, but the prosecution's argument goes deeper. This was a repeated pattern. Similar email combinations, rush orders, camera downtime, heartbeat reset cues appear across multiple dates in different documents. Add in testimony from lighting contractors confirming phased light dimming during corridor transitions. And a picture starts to form. Not of a spontaneous party, but of a calculated environment designed to move people, dim the lights, and shut down the eyes in the sky, exactly when it mattered. And here's the kicker. All of it happened while Diddy was allegedly in full control of the estate, so the question isn't just what was planned. It's who knew about it, and how many times it happened. 5 times in the Bieber video you hear it. A voice over the radio saying, "Heartbeat reset." Calm, clear, and in control. But who was speaking? That's what prosecutors set out to prove. And according to them, they did. Using a forensic audio analysis conducted by the FBI, they matched the voice to a senior executive assistant tied to Diddy's inner circle. This same assistant had already appeared in earlier chat logs and emails admitted into evidence. The match wasn't just based on pitch. The FBI report highlighted identical phrasing, timing rhythms, and even vocal stress patterns, but the defense didn't sit back. They brought in their own audio expert, who argued that the recording conditions, radio static, hallway acoustics, compression artifacts, make any confident identification unreliable at best. The judge allowed both sides to present their findings, but ultimately ruled that the jury will decide what to believe. No definitive ruling, no forced conclusion. Just a choice: trust the match or question the science. Still, the timing couldn't be worse for Diddy. This assistant isn't just any staffer. They're someone prosecutors say had logistical authority during the events in question. Someone who could schedule camera downtime, manage guest access, and direct movement behind closed doors. So if that voice really is theirs, it means someone with direct operational power was giving coded instructions, right when the most damning part of the footage was captured. And now, that voice might follow Diddy all the way to the verdict. No headlines, no commentary, just silence. And the video. Inside the courtroom, the jury was brought in, and for the first time, they watched the full 14-minute Bieber clip play out in real time. No edits, no overlays, just a single static corridor camera capturing movement, radio chatter, and routine that didn't feel so routine anymore. The room was still. Prosecutors said nothing. They let the footage speak for itself. Uniformed staff. Members led small groups toward a restricted wing entrance. At multiple points, a staffer's voice crackled over the radio. Heartbeat reset! A timestamp counted up in the corner of the screen, while a live projector feed displayed synchronized router logs and badge swipes. It was like watching a digital crime scene reconstruct itself, frame by frame, line by line. Then, prosecutors replayed a slowed 40-second segment. 2 staff members are seen discussing linen shortages. One says, "Refresh bins need to be restocked immediately." The prosecution pointed out the precise overlap with a rush linen order email already in evidence. The defense objected, said slowing the footage exaggerates what's happening. The judge allowed it, but warned the jury to evaluate both versions equally. What mattered most wasn't what the jurors saw, but how much they connected the dots. Because now, the prosecution's narrative wasn't just spreadsheets and witness claims. It had video, audio, and timestamps all converging on one point, and if jurors believe what they saw, the next phase becomes harder for the defense to untangle. By now, the courtroom had turned into a battleground, not of shouting or theatrics, but of strategy and tone. On one side, the defense went clinical. They framed everything as high-end. Hospitality. They argued that home automation systems, smart lighting, linen rotations, and camera maintenance were just the normal mechanics of a luxurious event. "There's nothing criminal about being organized," one lawyer said flatly. To them, it was all logistics, overanalyzed by people looking for patterns where there were none. But the prosecution took a different path. They went human. They described an environment where guests weren't just pampered, they were isolated, where schedules weren't for convenience, but for control, where staff weren't improvising, they were executing orders. Their message was clear. This wasn't about throwing a good party, this was about power and secrecy. Each side built its case differently. The defense leaned on technology, minimizing emotion. The prosecution leaned into emotion, building dread from digital facts. And now that the jury had seen the video, heard the audio, and read the emails, everything depended on interpretation. Was this just an overmanaged VIP event? Or the final act in a long-hidden system? And then came the moment that pushed this trial into the realm of legend. The Bieber footage was just one piece, because prosecutors still had one more move. This isn't just another celebrity courtroom. Drama. Legal analysts, industry insiders, and even former prosecutors agree. This could become the biggest trial Hollywood has ever seen. Why? Because it's not just about Diddy anymore. It's about what the industry tolerated. About the blurred lines between access and abuse. About how NDAs, power, and status created a silence so deep it lasted for decades. Online, comparisons. To Epstein and Maxwell started flooding in. People began speculating. How many other parties, how many other people, and how many times had this happened without a camera rolling? And as the Bieber clip circulated among legal teams, something else happened: panic. Private insurers began rewriting policies for mansion events. Record labels sent out new protocols. Booking agencies now require floor plans, guest device policies, and off-site security contacts before any appearance at a private estate. The mansion where the footage was shot? It's now under nonprofit ownership, set to be remodeled, with the exact corridor in the video preserved as a training exhibit for event transparency. This trial isn't just threatening a man's career, it's changing how the industry functions. It's exposing the machinery that allowed fame and money to override safety and oversight. And the scariest part for insiders? This is just the beginning, because one forgotten memory card just opened a door, and nobody knows how far it goes. Now, with the trial in full motion, the biggest questions aren't about what's been shown. They're about what the jury believes. Will they see a pattern in the data, the emails, the radio chatter, and that silent corridor? Or will they see what the defense insists is just hospitality gone high-tech? One thing's certain, this case is no longer just about Sean Diddy Combs. It's about a culture that rewarded silence, blurred lines, and unquestioned access. It's about who got to decide what normal looked like in a world where privacy and power collided behind locked doors. The court still hasn't decided if Justin Bieber will testify live. Prosecutors say he doesn't need to. The video speaks for itself. But the defense warns that if he takes the stand, the case could spiral into celebrity distraction and jury bias. And in the background, lawmakers are already drafting new legislation, the Creative Industry Guest Safety Act, pushing for accountability, oversight, and transparency at private events across entertainment. So what started with a sealed memory card may end with federal reform. But for now, everything comes down to a single room, a group of jurors, and a verdict that could either dismantle a myth or let it continue. Because one question still hangs over this entire case. Was this just another exclusive party? Or was it something far more orchestrated? We're about to find out.